Hi everybody, welcome to section 5.3. This is the section that I've been waiting to teach you for the entire semester. This is the section that separates those who are really good in the kitchen and can create wonderful, delicious plates and baking and pastry masterpieces, those who make a great cocktail and who are great in the front of the house, from those who can do all that and who can also turn profit and be successful and be part of this wonderful restaurant culture that we have in both this community and in the world. Because most restaurateurs, most pastry chefs, most people that are in the restaurant management segment don't understand this piece. So when I created a culinary school over a decade ago, this was one thing that I said to myself, I will make sure that I share with each and every student so that every student who leaves will at least have heard and have learned that it's more than just being good in the kitchen or in the pastry shop or behind a bar or with customers. It takes someone who also understands that restaurants are a business and who paid attention to how to win in business. So pay attention, because this is the part of our industry that excites me the most. Let's learn how to make and keep money. So in section 5.2, the objective is going to be to understand and calculate cost proportion, selling price, and food cost percent. Some words that we are going to define and talk about are food cost percent, selling price, and gross profit. So the formula for selling price, let me move this out of the way, is going to be cost per portion. And we started to learn how to do this, right, on a recipe costing sheet. How much does the entire recipe cost me to make, divided by the selling price? How much will I put it on the menu for? Will tell me what my overall food cost percentage is. So tuck that formula away, because that is the first one that we're going to learn and talk about in section 5.3. The next thing that we need to talk about is how to apply this formula. So let's look at a physical item like a muffin. Let's say that this muffin cost us, on a recipe costing form, 50 cents to make. We will understand that bakery items should run a food cost in the teens or 20s. So let's look at this, and let's say that we know this muffin cost us 50 cents. At first blush, we're going to say, what would happen if we sell it for $1.50? Well, take your calculator out and put 50 cents divided by 150 gives you a selling or a food cost percent of 33%. Well, we're going to say that's not too good, because I know that baking and pastry food cost percentages should be lower. So I want you to think about selling price and food cost percent like a seesaw, like that playground piece of equipment that you might have liked when you were little, okay? So as selling price goes up, as one side of the seesaw goes up, if this side is selling price and this side is food cost, as selling price goes up, food cost will go down. And look what happened in example 2. Now we take that muffin and we raise the price to $2. We're going to sell it for $2. What happened to my food cost percentage? It went down. Let's take the seesaw a little bit higher. Now we raise the selling price to $2.50. What happened to my food cost percent? It dropped to 20%. So selling price and food cost percent will have opposite reactions on one another. As selling price goes up, food cost percentage will go down. And if you lower a selling price, then you're going to raise that item's food cost percentage. Make sense? So now let's look at how we can interchange these formulas, okay? So that formula that I just gave you is one that I use if I'm going to consult with a restaurant who's struggling. If I walk into a restaurant, look at their financial documents because they're losing money, I will most often have them calculate the cost proportion of recipes for me. Then I will divide it by how much it's on their menu for. Because if I'm walking into an existing restaurant, they likely already have a printed menu. So I'll take cost proportion divided by selling price, and I'll get to that food cost percentage right here, right? I'll get to that and I'll say, wow, I see you have trouble here. Your food cost percentage is 54%. Our industry norm where we like to be around is 30. So in this case, that restaurant would be about 24% out of whack. The better formula, the more proactive formula that I want you to use so that you can be good at turning profit in this business is that first one there. Cost proportion right here divided by food cost percent will tell you what to sell it for. No guessing. You know how much you paid for it, divided by the food cost percentage that you want, and that will tell you how much to put it on the menu for, or selling price. Okay, let's play with a couple of these formulas now. Part A, cost proportion $3 divided by selling price $7.50 gives me a food cost percentage, and go ahead and play along with this on your phones or calculators, of 40%. Not too good, is it? Okay, well, it depends on what it is, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Next, cost proportion $3.67. Divide that by the selling price that's on the menu, $16.95. This item is running a 21.65% food cost. That's in line if we want to stay around 30%. Next, they're going to give us $4.18 as the cost proportion, and now they tell us we want this item to run a 29% food cost. So $4.18 divided by the required food cost percent, what we need to run of 29%, gives us our selling price, which is $14.42. Let's do that again. We estimate that a recipe cost us 62 cents. We want it to run 11%, so we divide by 0.11, and we get an estimated selling price of $5.64. Now, I know in part C and D you're getting some wonky items that you probably would never use on an actual menu. Head over, excuse me, to the video that I'll do on this section where I'll work through some problems after I joke. And I'll talk to you a bit about the psychology of menu pricing and whether you should round up or round down, round to a quarter, round 50 cents, whole number, 99, that sort of thing. Okay, now we talked about food cost percent, and we talked about the fact that we want it to be around 30%. But there's something else that comes into play, and when we're talking about being good financial managers in a restaurant, and that is a topic called gross profit. What gross profit means is you take your selling price minus your ingredient cost, and that gives you your gross profit. Now, I want you to extrapolate this out a little further and think about that you have all your revenue on your income statement. They used to be called profit and loss statements for an entire month, right? So you can also say total revenue minus total cost of revenue. We call that food cost because that's what we spend money on to make our revenue, equals gross profit. And gross profit is what's left over after you pay for your ingredient costs to pay for everything else, right? And you know that there are other expenses associated with running a restaurant. So gross profit is really important too, because you want to send a lot of dollars to gross profit so that you have a lot of dollars to pay for things like labor, mortgage, insurance, profit, all those kinds of things. Okay, so that's the formula for gross profit. Now, why is gross profit so important? I thought you just said, Chef, that food cost was so important, and I only have to be concerned that it's around 20% for baking items and 30% overall for food. Well, let me show you an example. Look at page 155 and 156. I want you to look at 155 first and look at those three items, the pork chop, the steak, and the pasta. Which one had the lowest food cost percentage? Which one? Well, the lowest food cost percentage was pasta, right? We'll turn to the next page. Which one had the highest gross profit? Which one had the highest gross profit? Well, that would be what? What would have the highest gross profit? The steak, right? So if you look at it, the pasta ran a really good 22% food cost. The steak ran a 41. But for every steak we sell, we send $11.22 to cover other dollar of expenses. Every time we sell a pasta, we only send $9.28. So which one do we use? It's important as good financial managers to use both. We like to use something we call a menu mix, which is when you add everything up, right? You add up all the number of pastas that you sold, all the number of steaks that you sold, and you average all of their food costs. We like our average food cost to be around 30%. So that means that some items can have a higher food cost and some hopefully will have a lower food cost. But overall, we want the overall food cost percentage to be about 30, and we can't forget the importance of gross profit and how much dollars we send to gross profit. Okay, so menu mix is really super important, that mix of everything we sell. We also have to talk for a minute about loss leaders. I'll introduce this and then I'll talk more in detail in my longer lecture. But a loss leader is something that grocery stores might use. Now think about at Thanksgiving, grocery stores might sell a turkey at just break even, or they might even take a loss on it. Well, why do they sell a turkey at a loss when that's what everybody's going to the store for? Because they know that the other 95 things that you put in your cart to go with the Thanksgiving meal, they're going to make a ton of money on you. Restaurants do the same. Restaurants might not make any profit at all on things like lobster or expensive steaks or high, foie gras type items or things like that. But they hope that when they upsell alcohol and desserts and appetizers and pasta and pizza and other cheap menu items, that overall that the loss that they took on one or two items that you came in for and they didn't make a lot of profit on, they'll make up on the other things that they sell you. So it's okay to have loss leaders on your menu as long as they round out that menu mix for you well. So keep in mind that the overall formula for food cost is what I said. It's the cost of food, right? How much all the food costs you for an entire period of time. So you could do this for a week, you could do this for a month, divided by the total food sales. How much were you able to produce in sales based on the money that you spent, right? The cost of sales will give you your total food cost percent. So cost of food divided by total sales will give you your total food cost percent overall. So what do? If the food cost needs to be lowered, if you walk in like I have to a restaurant and their food cost is out of whack, it's too high, what can you do? Well, think of the seesaw. You can increase the selling price. When you increase the selling price, you lower the food cost percent. Maybe you change the portion. Maybe it's a cake, and instead of only getting 8 slices out of a cake, right, you paid for the whole cake, maybe you can get 10 slices out. So now you have more to sell at the same price. So you can change the portion. You can also change the ingredient cost. Maybe you have a to die for burger, but that when you plug in cost divided by desired food cost percent and you come up with that selling price, you think no way anybody will pay that. Well, maybe you have to change the brioche bun a little bit, or maybe you have to work with a purveyor to get a better cost on ground beef or something like that, because if you lower the ingredient cost, you will also lower that food cost percent. Another formula to know before we wrap up is selling price times food cost percent will tell you what that item's cost is. So an example, a pasta on the menu sells for $15 and runs a 32% food cost. So 15 times 0.32 will tell you what that item's, selling price is food item cost is, and that would be $4.80. So remember the formulas. Let me end with one thing before we kick over to the video. When you're thinking about selling price and how much to sell it for, the house always wins. Just think of a casino. If you're deciding, do I round up or round down? Don't round down, round always up to the house so that you have more margin to make profit. And truly, customers won't notice a 10% round up or a 10-cent round up or round down.